Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, here to preview Week 17 in the NFL. And of course, for those listening or watching, a Merry Christmas. This is being released around 9 p.m. tonight in the UK on Christmas Eve. So those listening, have a great Christmas. Hope you enjoy the Christmas Day games. Today with me, I've got a returning guest. He's our resident Cleveland Browns fan with us today. Back on the show is Dan Toomey. Dan, how are things?
Andy, things are great. It's the holiday season, and the NFL is just the gift that keeps on giving. Fingers crossed that the Netflix servers are ready for all the action they're about to experience with the first Christmas Day NFL games tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now, I think we're lucky as the UK NFL fans that it gets to be on Sky Sports regardless. I believe, I might be wrong, I'm pretty sure it's still on Sky regardless. But for those in America like yourself, a bit more of an issue. So I think from what I've seen, I've never been a massive fan of smart TVs. I'm firmly against. I'd rather have satellite, if I'm honest, because the amount of times I watch our football and someone's watching on a digital box and I'm watching it on smart TV in our flat, and I'm being told 30 seconds before I see it that there's been a goal. So I think either everyone gets on one, or I don't like the fact that it's one or the other, and I don't like the fact that you're relying on the internet. I think that you get I don't know whether it's different where you are in New Jersey, but certainly in the UK, certainly where we get one heavy storm really about every year and a half, 2 years, but even then normally okay to keep the power on. So I think whereas the internet, I do feel like every week there seems to be an internet problem somewhere, and the more people are having the internet, more people are likely to have internet problems. So yeah, I'm not really in favor of the smart TV revolution. I much firmly be in the old days, not old days, have the satellite dish, have a box, and that's it. I don't like the fact you're relying on Wi-Fi. So yeah, that should be an interesting experience for those watching on Netflix tomorrow.
Yeah, because we had, I don't know if you follow boxing at all, but there was that Mike Tyson, Jake Paul thing a couple of weekends back that was a Netflix exclusive. And the big takeaway from that is that the servers they have just couldn't handle the amount of, volume of people watching. I think I got out of work late. I wasn't very into it, but I wanted to catch a little bit of it. And I opened Netflix and it just froze right away. So I'm just hoping that's not the experience, tomorrow with two, which should be two very good, very important football games on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all four teams playing going to be in the playoffs. I can't see any way. I think they've all literally been locked in. Texans, Chiefs, Ravens, they're all locked in. So every single team playing in these games tomorrow, are all going to be, playoff teams. Now, whether that means they're battling for number one seed, certainly the Chiefs are, and the Steelers and Ravens are battling for the division title, and the Texans are there. They've won the division, they're not going to get number one seeds. Maybe they'll be a bit less into it, but certainly the other three teams are going to be massively invested in these games. So I think all important, and it's going to be an interesting challenge to see what happens with the old Netflix. And before we go on to the games and our predictions from last week, if you are missing DraftKings over in the UK, head over to fantasygameday.app, the only app designed by UK fans for UK fans, and use code Andy5 for your chance at cashback for your first paid lineup. Now, last week in our show, we had our guest for week 16. It was Cam McFarlane, and he beat me. He got 10 correct scores. I got 8. We had all the correct scores apart from 3 different winners. So I had the Ravens beating the Steelers, whereas Cam had the Chiefs and Chargers winning the games. I had the Broncos and Texans winning. So Cam got 10, I got 8, which means as it stands, I'm still the leader with my 16 correct scores from week 13, but I'm also bottom with my 6 correct scores from week 3. So still top and bottom of the leaderboard. Dan, are you confident now? You're probably not going to... It's impossible to beat my score because I got a perfect score one week, but are you confident you can at least make it into top 3?
I could put up a respectable performance. Let's not remember that 2 years ago I correctly guessed the Browns record.
You did. So a lot of expectation. You got a big act to follow.
For sure.
Now, I alluded to a very special announcement I'm making on the podcast today. I mentioned it on my Twitter a few times last few days. This will come at the end of the show. So for those who are wanting the update, keep listening. You'll eventually find the announcement later on in the show. But we start off, we alluded to the two games there, our Christmas Day games on at 6 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. over in the UK, and in the States, that is going to be 1 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. The first one is in Arrowhead as the Chiefs host the Steelers. The Chiefs looking to secure the number one seed, whereas the Steelers are looking to keep up the pace with the AFC North divisional chances. Dan, as you are the guest, I'm going to give you the honours first. Who wins this game for you, Steelers or Chiefs?
I'm going with the Chiefs this one. Mahomes' injury was, worrisome, but he's obviously already played through it. So if anything, he's going to be getting progressively better and better and better when it comes to that ankle. The Steelers are not a bad team. It's going to be a very, very good game, but I just think Mahomes and the Chiefs, they win this game. And I believe with a win, they lock up the number one seed, or they needed some help from Buffalo losing, but they're very close to getting it. And, with injuries like that, and I'm still figuring out the left tackle position, that first round bye is very important for them this year.
I agree. I've got the Chiefs winning as well. I think I had the Texans winning last week because of the Mahomes adaptive injury. But if I'm honest, that was probably one of their more complete performances of the season. And it must be, I think, actually a really bad season. They've just been somehow winning games, which is obviously what good teams do. But I think with Mahomes, what I saw last week, he was back to his full health. And I think I think if it was in Pittsburgh, I might be tempted to at least have a more of a debate about this. But the fact that at home, I'm going to put my faith in the Chiefs and also put my faith in the Ravens. I think they're going to beat the Texans. I think the Texans have not been as good as anyone thought they'd be. I think they're still division champions. It must have been a poor division. But I don't think against any good team, they'll have the offensive line to protect Stroud in a big game. We should have beaten them 2 weeks ago if it wasn't for a certain quarterback not doing it again in a big game. But, it's, I think, against that Ravens defense, which has been bad against the pass, but against the run, it's been pretty good. And I think they have no problem in, getting to Stroud. I do worry for the Ravens if it was, if there was Diggs and Tank Dell there healthy, I would say, maybe they could cause some problems for that Ravens secondary. But with them two out, Tank Dell injury obviously was horrible last week against the Chiefs. ACL done for the year, and I do feel like in this game, I think the Texans are one and done in the playoffs. I think the injuries, the offensive line, I think personally it'll be most likely the Steelers or Ravens. Whoever loses the AFC North, they'll play. And I don't see any way the Houston Texans win that game. And I think this is almost could generally be a preview of the wildcard round. I do think, personally, I think Steelers will make it as the fifth seed and the Ravens will win the division. But it could easily be the wildcard game. So give me the Ravens over the Texans. Dan, who are you picking?
I have to agree. Ravens over Texans. Texans already have their division locked up, so you could argue they don't have much to play for. But like you mentioned, Diggs is out for the year. Tank Dell, the horrible injury. We may not see him until 2026 at this point with the severity of the injury, given his body frame and body size. So the Texans are really going to spend the next couple weeks just figuring out what their offense is going to look like. They just signed Deontay Johnson off of waivers. I don't think he's going to play in this game because it's 2 days of prep time. He might be out there, run a couple routes, a couple plays, decoy type stuff. But the Texans really do have to take advantage of having that playoff spot locked up and, figure out how they're going to attack these other playoff teams when it comes to the playoffs. And the Ravens would be a good test. I wouldn't be surprised to see, Bobby Slowick break out different things, try different things with the offense, try to get some new looks going because they're going to have to adapt if they're going to overcome when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, massively. They just worry massively. I think from what I said before, everything you're saying as well, it is just there's so many injuries, so many holes in that offensive line. I think certainly they got a young quarterback there. They got a young receiver in Tank Dell. They got Nico Collins. There's some good weapons out there you can use in the future. Will Anderson on defense, Derek Stingley. But I think this season maybe one season too much. I think next season, maybe when Diggs isn't there, because the Bills have proven without Diggs how good they've been. So maybe when Diggs goes, maybe then they'll even be more ready for a Super Bowl challenge. But I think maybe the season has come maybe one year or 2 years too early for them. But either way, it should be a cracking Christmas Day. Now, we've got it a bit easier than you because we have the games later in the day. For us personally on Christmas Day, the game's done by 6. Sorry, dinner's done by 6 o'clock when our game starts. So we get that luxury of we don't have to have that issue of combining trying to watch the NFL, trying to interact with family. But obviously, for you in America, over in the States, Dan, you've obviously got a different issue. 1 o'clock start. Obviously, NFL is a lot more ingrained in culture than it is in the UK. But how does your family day work in terms of the in-laws or the cousins or the siblings when you're trying to watch the football as well as interact with family?
So we've brought our first child into the world this year, and it's be his first Christmas. So we're excited for Christmas morning, and then um, luckily our family all lives around the area, so we got 3 different houses to go to. To be honest, because I also work on Sundays a lot, and I'm so into the NFL, I don't care about missing the games live. I watch the games anyway. If you have an NFL Plus subscription, they have a wonderful feature where it's condensed games and you can watch an entire game in 30 to 40 minutes. So I don't really go out of my way to make sure that I'm watching anything live because I know I'm going to come back on Friday and watch every game pretty much anyway. So, and then besides that, just diving into film when it comes to like Browns offense and Browns defense stuff. I watch enough football throughout the week that it's going to sound weird because I'm a big NFL fan, but actually watching the games live is like one of my least concerning parts of being a fan, just because I've come to realize that family comes first. You can't replace these moments with your family, and you can always watch the Chiefs game on Friday morning. You can always watch the Ravens game Friday afternoon. There's always time that you can make for football. But so although if you are trying to watch live, you have to have a family that's also into the game. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of like pulling teeth.
Do you try and avoid results, or do you just front it and just say, "Look, I know the result. I'm just going to watch it anyway," or do you try to avoid it to give you a little bit of that live experience when you do watch it on the Friday afternoon or Friday morning?
No, see, that's the other weird thing is like I'm more into watching, the offense versus the defense, schemes, tendencies, how these two coordinators try to beat each other. That I could go into a game knowing the results, and it really doesn't affect the enjoyability of it to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Can't really argue with that. I personally, I'm a big fan of just in general life, the surprise element, whether it's surprising someone for their birthday or Christmas or not knowing what's happening in a film. I hate spoilers on TV shows and films, and the same thing in NFL. I'll still watch it, but it does add for me. It makes my experience better if I can go into it watching it because I do normally watch the games at 1 a.m. that are on it, or the late games, primetime games that are on 1 a.m. in the UK. I watch them the next day on my phone, so on my iPad, watch all the games, not knowing the score before work. Phone on Do Not Disturb, notifications off, no one's trying to give me the way to score. And then you have to try, and sometimes if you can't watch it all before work, you have to then try and avoid it all throughout lunch. It's a challenge, but thankfully it's a lot easier to avoid a score in the UK than it is
I was going to say in America, it's next to impossible to avoid
Yeah.
hearing scores, whether it's just you're at the bagel shop in the morning or the first thing when you get to work, somebody's like, "Oh my God, you see the Steelers win last night?" You're like, "All right, well, it's ruined." So I just accept the fact that, if I'm going to watch games at a later date, it's going to be spoiled. But, like I said, I'm there for more the X's and O's in the game of chess than I am for the final results. So I still get enjoyment out of it. I'm built differently, as they say.
Well, people who aren't built differently are the Bears. They once again struggling this season as they host the Seattle Seahawks on the first of our Sunday slate. I'm going for the Seahawks to win this game. I was high on the Bears before the season, more than the Seahawks, but that's been flipped this season. The Bears have been terrible. And I think the Seahawks have been a bit in and out, won their first 3 games, then lost 4 of the next 5. But they're still on that hunt for the division. They're 1 win behind the Rams at the moment. And, with the Rams playing the Cardinals, that could easily be a game where they drop an L. So I think they get the win here and put the pressure on the Rams before they play each other on the final day of the regular season.
So this is a Thursday night games, the day after Christmas. Thursday games are always
Oh,
wacky.
apologies. I was thinking, I forgot about the Thursday element.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Bears here. I feel like Seattle, their season has come up short for sure. They're definitely a team that entered the season with higher expectations and finishing around 500 and missing the playoffs. And I feel like I don't know, Thursday night games are always wacky. Thursday night games are always weird. Rookie quarterbacks always tend to look better as you get towards the later part of the season. And it is a home game in Chicago. Chicago weather in December can be all over the place when it comes to snow, wind, cold. And I think the Bears are going to pull off the upset at home and, give Chicago fans a little something for Christmas week, a little present, if you will.
Amazing, amazing. And Yeah, apologies. That is a Thursday game, and there's actually games on Saturday as well, at 6 o'clock and 9:30 p.m. Two games that are absolutely massive for the AFC playoff hunt. One that could see the Dolphins completely out of the playoff hunt, or still within a chance, as both the Chargers and Broncos do play. Chargers first, then the Broncos. If both these teams win, the Dolphins are officially out of the playoff contention, although I do think we already are. But a loss for the Chargers and a loss for the Broncos gives us a chance still. So there's definitely for me a lot of eyes on these two games. But we got to live first of all one of our division rivals in the Patriots as they host the Chargers. Dan, we'll go to you first. Have the Dolphins got a chance of making the playoffs after this game?
I'm gonna go with the Chargers here.
Yeah.
I just think New England they're finding their identity with a new quarterback, and the Chargers they're looking very good. They're looking great on defense. They haven't been relying on Herbert this season as much, but when they have to rely on him, he's been playing really well. I think they're gonna win. I think they'll be in the playoffs, and I think they'll be a sneaky dark horse to make a run there when it comes to the postseason.
I had the Chargers as one of my dark horses a few weeks ago. I said this in the podcast, and I do think it has gone a little bit stale. Still, I don't think it's been quite as good since the last few weeks. But I think the winning into Broncos proved to me Broncos team that I've been impressed by this season. I think they can still, be a dark horse. I think the Dobbins injury is huge, and I think that could affect them. But I think certainly that defense and Herbert only throwing 3 picks the whole year, albeit it's been obviously a more run-heavy offense. I think certainly with an actual functional head coach and Jim Harbaugh rather than Lynn and Staley, I think they've got a chance to at least win a playoff game. But they'd have to play most likely 6 or 7 seed, either the Bills or potentially the Ravens or Steelers. Now, I don't personally think they'll win those games, but I think they'd have more of a chance of winning those games than they would ever do under their 2 head coaches before. So I'm going for the Chargers as well. I think this will. Plus, I think the Broncos will win the other game later on in the same day against the Bengals. I think that will be the end of our playoff hopes, which means that I mentioned in the last episode, I've been given as a Christmas/30th birthday present for my girlfriend tickets to Jets Dolphins. Probably going to be meaning this game now, but it'll be good to experience it. I should now finally hope to see us win a game live. I think if you can't beat the Jets this season, then when am I ever going to see the Dolphins win a game in person? But I might be there for Aaron Rodgers' last ever game in person, which will be quite a bit of history if I was there for that. So, I think ultimately the Broncos do beat the Bengals. But Dan, who wins this game for you?
I'm gonna go with the Broncos as well. Sorry, RIP to the Dolphins playoffs hopes, unfortunately. But Sean Payton and Bo Nix, they're like, I don't know, almost like a perfect match, it seems like, which makes sense because pre-draft, we talked about how Bo Nix was linked to the Broncos for months and months and months. And, Sean Payton viewed him as his, next iteration of a Drew Brees type. Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow, God, like, this might be a hot take, but I think he has a strong case to win MVP this year. Like the numbers he is putting up, he might finish with better numbers than Lamar or Josh Allen and just be on a losing team because the defense is so bad. So, I feel bad for him. It's another wasted year of, Joe Burrow's career, so to speak. But yeah, I think the Broncos, they just put it together at the right time, and I think they're going to take down the Bengals. And like I said, unfortunately, that's the end of the Dolphins playoffs hopes. And actually, I think there's a chance that we have every playoff spot decided by the end of this weekend, which is very interesting. As you go into week 18, there's not going to be much to play for as far as the AFC is regarded.
That's interesting because there was a few playoff scenarios that could play off in the last day of the season. I mean, particularly on the NFC side of things, you've got the likes of the Seahawks and the Rams play each other. The Vikings and the Lions play each other. That could be, for the Rams and Seahawks, potentially an NFC West showdown. And the same as Vikings and Lions. They're both on, same amount of wins, same amount of losses. So you've got those two playing on the last day. And I think, I think we'll see more of the seeding more than the actual playoff positions that could be still available. Because you think about the, I'm trying to get up currently the playoff picture on my laptop, but it's taking a while to load up. But it's, you think about the Commanders have got 10 wins. They're way ahead of like the fact that, the Cardinals and Niners, the Cardinals have got 7 wins. They're out of the playoffs and they're 3 wins behind the or 4 wins behind the Commanders. So it is just it's going to be, I think, a few games to play for. I think that Lions Vikings game could be the one that's put on Sunday Night Football. If the Seahawks win and the Rams lose, maybe that could be the one they put on prime time. There was one more as well that was going on Sunday. Let me just get the fixtures up for next week.
Yeah, but I think as far as the AFC is concerned, I think it could play out this weekend where every spot is locked up. Because I believe if the Steelers win, the Ravens lose, the Steelers have the AFC North locked up.
Right.
The AFC West is already going to the Chiefs. AFC East is going to the Bills. AFC South is going to the Texans. And then your wild card spots are going to be Chargers, Broncos, and Ravens, assuming all three of those teams win and the Colts lose. I think the AFC is just done, ready to go, which creates an interesting scenario. Do all those teams rest their starters week 18? But like you said, the NFC side is still pretty much open when it regards to number one seed, NFC North, NFC East, NFC West, NFC South. Even there's the NFC is wide open, but the AFC might be on lockdown when it comes to the end of festivities on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance that even though they've not announced the games yet and the times, I think one I go to in person will be the 1 p.m. Eastern slot. I don't see any way they put this game on a Saturday, and I don't see any way this is on prime time unless it goes into a situation where it is those teams have lost and we've got a chance. But I think should the results we've got go to plan, then I think it will be the case where they'll put our game at 1 Eastern with nothing riding on it, and both teams can sail into the sunshine of off-season mediocrity. We mentioned the NFC West. We head on to our next lot of games on the Sunday. This is the Rams are hosting the Cardinals. Now, I could be wrong. I'm worried I've got this wrong game about the fixtures. I think this is Sunday. I don't want to...
No, this is the Saturday primetime, Saturday night game.
What's going on? I blame... I blame my food at lunch. It was a heavy carb-filled lunch. Maybe my brain's gone off switch. Because I was thinking,
honestly, we just finished week 16 last night, and week 17 starts tomorrow. I just call it, it's a 2-week slate. It's just all blended together because there's football every other day. And then, over here in America, I don't know how much you guys follow college in the UK, but we also just finished the first round of the college football playoffs. So we've been on a streak of football for quite a while over here in America with meaningful games that have, supposedly it was supposed to be a lot of action in college. It wasn't a lot of action, but like I said, meaningful games for the past, I want to say, 8 days at this point now, it seems like.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter that people were raging that they had NFL games on when the college games were on. People were raging that you had the Chiefs, Texans, and Ravens, Steelers on when there was big important playoff games. But it's a mad time of year, and it's one we will live for. But it is sometimes. Sometimes I sort of forget who's playing or what sometimes. But it is around hosting the Cardinals on the late game. I'm going for the Rams to win this game. I just feel like the Cardinals, they just have been a bit too hit and miss. I think the Rams are just hitting form at the completely right time. I mean, what this team's done with second and third rounders is incredible. You think about Frisk, Turner, Young, all second, third rounders, Puka Nacua, fifth rounder. And they did get their first rounder with Jared Verse, but that was their first in years. And I think this team starts off 1-4. They were awful, and then they turned it around all of a sudden, and they're one of the hottest teams going to the playoffs. And they're hitting form at completely the right time, and I think this will continue against the Cardinals, who, as I said before, have been very hit and miss.
Yeah, I got to agree there. The one thing you think about is, like you said, the Rams' defensive line with all those young stars in the post Aaron Donald world, and with the Cardinals, they have a lot of injuries up front on the offensive line, and I hate to say it wasn't a very good offensive line to begin with. So I think the Rams' defensive line is going to set the pace and set the tone for this one, and the Rams are going to easily win this one.
And talking of easily win, our next game is the Bills hosting the Jets, and that is probably, I think, the easiest game to call. Bills at Jets. Now, the Bills have these tendencies to struggle sometimes against teams they're not meant to struggle against, but I don't see any way the Bills, in their current form, don't beat the Jets. Now, they struggled a little bit against the Patriots last week. There was a little bit of, 14-0 down at one point. There was a bit of concern, I think, but ultimately they won games that I think all teams who want to win titles and championships have to win games when it's not going well, win games ugly. And I think this is what they did. And yeah, I think they'll ease at home to win against the Jets. Dan, who wins it for you?
Yeah, I gotta go here with the Bills. It's home game, Bills looking really good. The Jets are, I don't know, dysfunctional is probably the best word to describe that organization right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, I think if I was a Jets fan, and shout out to Olivia if you are watching, our resident Jets fan. I mean, this must be the most frustrating thing in the world because you think about how all the struggles they had for years and years. Ones that still mean they have the longest playoff drought. But to think you go out and you think, oh, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. We're going to get Aaron Rodgers. This is the guy who's won 4 MVPs. You think he's going to be the guy to change the franchise. All the constant talk in the summer: is he going to go? Is he not going to go? Finally joins all the off-season talk, hard knocks. And then week one, obviously, we all know what happens. 4 snaps in, he gets that season-ending injury, and the talk again in the off-season again. You get Devontae Adams in, still doesn't work out. So to all that to happen and they still suck, it just must be the most frustrating. If I was a Jets fan, I would be fuming. Not, I don't think at Rodgers. I think he can't help getting old and getting on. But I think certainly the fact he went all in on this guy who hasn't performed yet, sadly, for them, must be just the most frustrating thing in the world.
So coming from somebody who lives in local Jets media market, the flavor of the week this week is getting Woody Johnson to try to sell the team because, I'm not sure if the news have made it over to you in the UK, but apparently his family has a lot more involvement in the front office decisions than many people thought. I'm sure. Did you see the thing about
his son checking also something about his son on social media and and making decisions based on that? Was that right? Sorry to interrupt you there. Is that what I heard somewhere?
So a story leaked that the Jets were ready to trade for Jerry Jeudy, but owner Woody Johnson didn't want to sign off on the trade because his son told him that his Madden rating wasn't that good. So, so that's where we're at for the New York Jets.
That says it all. That really, really says it all. And I'm fully aware that I'm saying all this. They're probably going to beat us now when I see him play in a few weeks. But yeah, no, it's just. I mean, the Dolphins haven't been great for years, but at least we've made playoffs. At least we've, it's just it's for a town like New York to have such bad sports teams all over the shop. Whether it's the Knicks, Knicks have been obviously better nowadays, but think about how much they've struggled for years. The Giants, the Jets, the Islanders, the Mets. They had a good year last year, but such a big town, they got a lot of teams that suck in sports. Talking of suck, our next game is the weekly edition of our Toilet Bowl as the Jags host the Titans, two teams who are terrible. We all know this. I'm going to give the Titans the win. I have more faith in Mason Rudolph than I do Mac Jones. And I think with someone like, I absolutely love Wes Budikine. I think he's so underrated, doesn't get anywhere near the reps he should as a player. And I think this could be another game where he delivers and gets a job done. And I think, but I think this game could genuinely be a score fest because I think both teams have been really poor defensively. But I think you could either see the likes of Calvin Ridley and obviously Wes Budikine get involved. We think about Brian Thomas. And I think this game could be a shootout for all the wrong reasons. I think just two bad defenses having a bad day. So give me the Titans, and I think what could be one of the games of the week in what is one of the worst games of the week on paper.
So this game actually has huge implications. Someone who's very into the pre-draft process and scouting and stuff like that. We have Jacksonville and Tennessee, both teams with 3 wins, both currently picks inside the top 5 of the NFL draft. The winner of this game falls from pick like 3 or 4 to pick 10. So I'm not saying, team players tank or coaches tank, but if there was ever just one game to be like, hey guys, take a week off, let's just, lose this one. This is the game. It has huge implications when it comes to draft order. I have Jacksonville winning this one. Brian Thomas Jr. to Mac Jones, the connection is real for some reason. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to have a big game against this poor Tennessee defense. And then like you said, it's going to be a high scoring affair for all the wrong reasons. We're going to have a couple pick sixes, we're going to have a fumble six. Maybe it's going to be an interesting football game to watch, but don't let anybody talk down about this matchup. It has huge implications when it comes to the draft order, especially when you think about team needs. Tennessee is a team that will probably be looking in the quarterback market, and Jacksonville is a team that will definitely not be picking in the quarterback market, so outside of their draft order, you got teams like the Giants who are looking at quarterbacks. You got teams like the Browns looking at quarterbacks. They really want Jacksonville to lose this game to push Jacksonville up in the draft order, because that's one more non-quarterback selecting team that's picking the top 5. Big game.
It's big. It's interesting because we've seen there was a famous incident years ago in it was either the Euros or the World Cup where teams played out for a draw to advance to the next round of the tournament. And I always think at some point, would both teams just go play out for? I always think, would they play out for a 0-0 draw? Is there any way that they could just, both try and play for draw, because both teams don't want to lose this game? And if they're, I don't think it ever happens, but I always wonder whether there'd be any occasion where teams would. Almost like, when the Chargers played the Raiders in that final game of the season, where they were both at one point seemingly going for the tie before Brandon Staley called a timeout and Raiders changed their game plan completely. I always think at some point, would two teams trying to tank, would they just almost not try? And I don't know. I think players are instilled not to do that. But I always think one day, will we ever see like a really low scoring game with late on in the season when both teams are playing for that number 1 or at least top 5 draft pick?
Well, the one argument that I always make, and you got to remember, is these players aren't playing for, at this point in the season, these players aren't playing for this current team. These players are playing to get film on tape as they enter free agency, because like not everyone's a free agent in these teams, but there are a good portion of this roster that is going to enter free agency. And those guys want to get good tape on film so they can make money at their next spot. So it's impossible to ask a team to tank in the NFL. It just is. Just the way contracts work, the salary cap, the offseason works. It's impossible unless you somehow guaranteed every player on the team a contract next year, which at that point, you're just a bad team again next year. So, yeah, people always say like, oh, they should lose. But the players who are currently in the roster, they don't care about your draft position. They only care about, putting good film on tape. So when they do hit free agency, they can make money at their next destination.
And also, you think about players that are already there, then say they're year 2 into their year 5 deal, or they're on their first or second year, their rookie deal. And say, for example, the Patriots right now, you think about their wide receivers, why would they want to lose and make them more likely to get Travis Hunter? Or like say like if your team's potentially going to draft say the Patriots is a perfect example because he's not a quarterback, but like why would a wide receiver or cornerback want to do badly to then have some guy potentially take his job? Think about Travis Hunter right now, projected to go 2nd overall. I think Shadir Sanders number 1 to the Giants in one mock draft I saw. Number 2 to the Patriots, Travis Hunter, who can play obviously multiple positions. And this goes into why would you take, and why would a quarterback want to lose games for them to go draft his replacement? The quarterback want to win games, because they'd be less likely to want to go out and get a quarterback. You think about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was one point they were thinking, oh, they're going to go and get Caleb Williams in the next draft. Kyler Murray came back off injury, played really well. They avoided the tank. They did well, and now really he's seen as the least of their problems at the position. So I think you're right. And when you put it like that, yeah, why would a team tank? Next up is a game involving 2 other bad teams as the New Orleans Saints host the Raiders. And this is where my announcement comes in. I am going to the Super Bowl. I am going to go into the Super Bowl Media Week. I'm not going to the game itself, sadly, but I've got creds for the whole week, which hopefully involves NFL honors, which involves all the Radio Row stuff during the week. And it's my first time doing it, so I'm incredibly excited to be announced.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations, Andy. Coming from somebody who's also worked in NFL media in the past, I know these things aren't easy to come by, and you've been at it for a while, for many years, on the grind, and it's paid off. And congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really just like obviously the game itself be nice to go to, but I think the next best thing is literally going to watch a game in a media room outside the stadium and potentially being allowed to go into the stadium after the game to interview the winning team. Now that bit's a bit TBC. We don't know, but certainly everything else in the week when it comes to Radio Row, potentially NFL honors, everything else that goes on during the week. The fact I'm going to be just around an NFL city where it's been played and just being at the stadium when the game's been played a few hours later, and also not watching a game at 1 a.m. I mean, it'd be nice to watch it at a decent time for once, and not not watching it until 4 in the morning. So yeah,
And you're going to a Super Bowl with a great city. New Orleans is
yeah,
a lot of fun. Great food, great drinks, great music. You're gonna have a great time. That's awesome.
I can't wait. And I'll be staying with a few boys in the franchise tag, Gareth, as well as two boys that have been on the show quite regularly in Sky and Freddie. Friend of the show, Shane Brennan, is also going to be there from the Irish NFL show. And many others that have been on this podcast will be there as well. So, yeah, incredibly excited to be bringing you guys all the content throughout that week, whether it's on our Instagram, whether it's on our Twitter, or on my own TikTok channel, Andy Talks NFL. So, yeah, very exciting news to bring you all. And, that was one of the best Christmas presents I could have received. Getting that email on Saturday just gone. And the Superdome is the host of this game as the Raiders take on the Saints. I'm going for the Saints. I think the Raiders, they could potentially go out and win this game. I think they've got the players that could do something. But I think overall the Saints just got a little bit more about them. They were awful in last night's game against Packers. Packers were completely outplayed them. It was a really bad performance from the Saints, but they seem to play well one week and win badly the next. And I think this will be the one where they do get the win and they'll beat the Raiders. But Dan, who do you think wins?
So I hate to be wishy-washy, but I feel like a lot of this depends on Aiden O'Connell, who's the quarterback for the Raiders. I know he still hurts. That situation is up in the air. I don't think Spencer Rattler looked terrible last night. I think given the wide receivers that he had around him, which were a lot of practice squad guys, given, he's without Alvin Kamara, his best offensive weapon. I think he moved the ball. He didn't have a ton of turnovers. I think he looked pretty good. So, it is a home game and he's going to get some of those weapons back. Right now, given the quarterback situation for the Raiders, I'm going to go with the Saints. Obviously, if Aiden is playing and other injury, we're recording this on Tuesday, so we even have, Wednesday practice reports, although it's Christmas tomorrow. So I guess maybe Wednesday practice reports come out Thursday this week. It's, like I said, very weird 2 weeks for the NFL right now. But given what we know about injuries currently, I would have to go with the Saints in this one, pending other players being available.
So next up is another bad team, the Giants, the current number one draft pick in next year's draft, as they host the Indianapolis Colts, who, of course, as I said before, still have plenty to play for this season. They've still got a small chance at making the playoffs, and they take on the Giants, and I think they get the win here. I think they keep their hopes alive. Actually, at this point, it could be all done. If the Broncos and Chargers win, this game is irrelevant for them. But if one of these two teams lose, then they got a chance. So I'm going to give the Colts to win. I think even if they get eliminated from playoff contention, I do feel like they still got enough in their locker to get the job done. And I think the Giants are clearly playing for the new quarterback, from Daniel Jones situation to sticking with DeVito and Drew Lock. Both haven't been great, and I think ultimately they will lose and they will have the number one overall pick, and I think the Colts will win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Colts. Fun fact, Andy, if you want to come to New York a week earlier, you can go to this game for $8. Tickets are as low as $8 in the New York metro area, which is just crazy. You'll pay triple that for parking.
Jesus. Also my girlfriend's bought these tickets as a birthday present. I hope she's not paid. Hope she paid £8. Hope she hasn't paid over the odds. I don't know how long ago she bought these tickets, but
I think the Jets have a better pull right now than the Giants. Because at least you can make the argument you're going to see Aaron Rodgers for maybe one of the last times. There's a bit of more storyline there. The Giants are kind of just lost right now.
The Giants are. Just absolutely awful, and they have been for years. Dallas at Philly. Now, if you'd asked me last week to give the predictions for the game, I'd have said easy. Eagles win. It's not even a question. But the Cowboys beat a team I think are good than the Buccaneers last time out, and the Eagles. Now, I don't know what the update is with Jalen Hurts. I think Dallas are going to win this game. I think they're starting to play better. It's completely too late in the season. At a point in the year. But I think in Philly as well, I think they had the collapse last year. Not saying it'll happen again, but you think about how poor, how much. I think Pickett. I don't think you can rely on him for a whole game to win you it, and it was a pretty disastrous last showing. Certainly the last quarter of the game for the Eagles, the way they allowed the Commanders to win that game. So I think the Dallas Cowboys win that game. They've got nothing riding on the game. The Eagles, they've got the division wrapped up. They're probably not. They got a small chance of number one seeds. They may just take their foot off the gas. I'm going to give the Cowboys the win.
I actually think the Eagles are going to win this one. It is a home game. We haven't heard any news on the Jalen Hurts concussion, but you have to remember, even if Jalen Hurts is out, they in the building will know that earlier than we will in the media, and they have a chance to put in a game plan knowing Kenny Pickett is the starter. Obviously against Washington, Kenny Pickett came in late first quarter, I think, and was kind of like forced to run the Jalen Hurts game plan. But offense doesn't go into a game with their entire playbook at their disposal. They have, a selection of plays at hand. So I feel like, you go into the game knowing Kenny Pickett's a starter, you can alter the offense. And I think, roster on roster, if you put the two teams against each other, regardless of quarterback, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are the better team. And I think even if it is Kenny Pickett, they handle business on Sunday.
Fair enough. Next one is the Panthers at the Buccaneers. Now, everything is telling me in my head the Buccaneers can win this game. They've got a better team, better quarterback, they're better coached. But I don't know what it is. Something about me tells me that Dave Canales is going to go back to his old team and he's going to beat them. Now, it's just probably going to come back and backfire horribly. But I just have this feeling in my head that Bryce Young is going to get the job done in Tampa.
I'm gonna go with Tampa on this one. Like I said, with the last game, just better roster overall, and I think Tampa Bay just handles business after coming back from a Cowboys loss.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to be proved massively wrong here. But if I say the Panthers, but I just have this, I just image in my head of the Panthers getting the job done. Of course, the Buccaneers need to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. I think at the moment the Falcons have the tiebreaker, so if the Falcons were to win and they lose, then I think the Buccaneers would ultimately be out of contention for the division. So, yeah, I think obviously lots of riding on the game. The Panthers have got nothing to play for. So yeah, it should be quite an interesting game. Now, big one next up. Well, probably not a big one for the playoffs or anything like that, but it's important for us to, as the Dolphins, my team, play your team in the Browns in Cleveland. Dan, as you're the guest, I'll let you go first. Who wins this game for you? Is it your Browns or my Dolphins?
So I had one sliver of hope going into this game. It is December and it is in Cleveland, Ohio. I said, okay, maybe we get a snow game, maybe get 5 degrees, and I love you and I love your Dolphins, but we know how they play in the cold. But unfortunately, it's going to be 55 degrees on Sunday, so it's perfectly fine weather for the Dolphins. DTR, Jameis Winston, I don't know who are rolling out a quarterback this week, but it doesn't matter. Give me Dolphins by 10.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think even without the weather, I would have backed us. I think to end this cold weather streak because I think Thompson Robinson has looked terrible. I mean, hasn't looked much better with Watson. I think Winston would have been more of a danger to me than maybe Watson or DTR. But yeah, I think with DTR there, I think what I saw against the Bengals was pretty bad last time out. So I think Dolphins get the win. We're finding form at the wrong time. I think it will be too late. I think the fact you mentioned it's warm as well, not going to be cold, adds to our case even more. So give me the Dolphins over the Browns, and also give me the Packers over the Vikings in what is one of the games of the week. I think one game would have been the game of the week if one team had actually turned up this year. More on that later on, but I think this game is to me the game of the week. Packers still got a chance of winning this division. They have to rely on beating the Vikings and then the Lions losing both games. But I think the Packers. I think the Packers for me. I've said it since the off season. They're winning the NFC for me, and I think they'll win this game. I think the Vikings have been good, and they're going to be so unlucky to be the 5th seed on what could be the 3rd best record in the entire league. I think they're lucky in that sense, but I think the Packers win. I just think that this Packers team is legit on both sides of the ball, on special teams. this Packers team is for real, and I think they could genuinely beat anyone on their day. So give me the Packers over the Vikings. Dan, Vikings or Packers?
I'm gonna go with Vikings this one. Sam Darnold right now. Like, is there another quarterback hotter in the NFL than Sam Darnold? Which, God, if we recorded that in August, we'd be saying, "What kind of crazy juice you're drinking, talking like that?" I think the Vikings are going to win this one. It's going to lead into a Week 18 battle for the NFC North, battle for the number 1 seed, Vikings Lions. Which, like I said, if we said this in August, we'd be saying, where's the crazy juice? What are you drinking? But yeah, give me the Vikings in this one.
It's amazing because the Vikings, no one thought we'd have in the season, but no one thought they'd be sitting here 13-3. We think about they had the amazing start, 4-5-0, and then they had this 2-game losing streak, and everyone thought, "Oh, okay, we're back to the old Down, back to the old Vikings. They might not make the playoffs. They may have a bad streak," and then they've not lost the game since, and it's been incredible. And I think you got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Allison to throw the ball to. It can make anyone play well, and I think that defense has been incredible as well. So I think this Vikings team is, unlucky to be in their division because they got more wins than every division winner bar the Chiefs, and that's it. And obviously the Lions. It's an incredible season from them. No one expected it, and I think they're rolling. But I still think that it's going to come unstuck at some point. But right now, I don't see it happening. I mean, it would be an incredible story for Darnold. It really would, because it would show, even for Baker Mayfield, 2 quarterbacks that were drafted in the 2018 draft. I'm currently writing an article about this good year for 2018 draft. We think about Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and their performance this season. All the quarterbacks have been, obviously apart from Josh Rosen, the first 5 taken have all been excellent. And these 2, I think, have shown for me, never give up, because both these quarterbacks are written off massively. You think about Baker Mayfield's time at the Browns, as you know full well, Dan, had his issues, had one good season and then one bad season. And then eventually got shipped out for Deshaun Watson, and then Panthers, he struggled there. Signed a 1-year, $4 million deal at the Bucks, and not even they thought he'd be that good, and he's been amazing since. But Sam Darnold has had, such a terrible time and written off, and all this stuff has happened to him. But yet he's gone to a functional organization, a good head coach, and look what's happened. He's been really good. And I think it will be amazing for me. I think the Vikings also not winning a Super Bowl in their history. I think I'm rooting for the Vikings out of the NFC teams. And for me, it would be an incredible story if he could go out and win a Super Bowl. This year is not even meant to be the start. He's meant to be the bridge quarterback. He was meant to be the guy to help McCarthy develop. But if Darnold keeps playing the way he does, McCarthy might get traded. I don't know what you think, whether you think they might stick with him. Say if Darnold was to guide him to 2 playoff wins, 3 playoff wins, reach him a Super Bowl, even win him a Super Bowl. What do the Vikings do with McCarthy? Do you think they just still view him as a develop behind Darnold for 4 years? They trade away Darnold. What do you think happens to the Vikings should they have a good playoff run?
Yeah, so one of my friends at work is actually a big Vikings fan. We've been talking about this probably for the past 5 weeks. I've seen it coming down the road that's going to be the number 1 conversation this offseason, what the Vikings do with the Sam Darnold. And I mean, I think what the contract is going to look like, it's going to be like a 3-year deal where the 3rd year is an option. And he's going to be making anywhere between, I want to say, 45 to 50 million a year. And you have JJ sitting behind him, and then you eventually have JJ take over. Look at what the Packers have done with the past couple of quarterbacks. Rodgers behind Favre, Love behind Rodgers. It doesn't not work. It's a formula that has proven in the past that it works. And going into the draft last year, I even said, like, if any of the quarterbacks have to sit for a number of years, it's JJ. He was the youngest coming out of college amongst all of them. And then he played in that Michigan offense, 2 years ago, where he wasn't asked to do a lot. He didn't have to throw the ball a lot. He had one of the lower pass attempts out of, large school quarterbacks in college that year. So if there is any quarterback that can benefit from sitting for 1, 2, or even 3 years, it is JJ. We've seen Kevin O'Connell has proven time and time again with, Kirk Cousins and now Sam Darnold and hopefully eventually JJ that he can develop quarterbacks. So I do think we're looking at a scenario where Sam Darnold signs, a 2-3 year deal with the Vikings and JJ just sits, and then he takes over in a couple years and we see how it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked with not just Favre and Rodgers, but also think about like Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith, Lamar Jackson behind Joe Flacco. I think the only thing, obviously, that worked in favour of Rodgers and Love is that Favre was getting in the. He was already past it. He was like late 30s. Rodgers late 30s. Alex Smith was aging. Joe Flacco as well. But Sam Darnold's 27. He's got, if he's playing at this level every year, he could go for at least another 10 years. So McCarthy is a bit. That's the only thing he has against him is that he's not. It's not like Darnold's like a Nick Foles, like or like a 35-year-old who's having this amazing season towards the end of his career. Darnold's still young. He was very young when he got drafted. So I think he could easily go for the 10 years. I think there's no way you bench him if he's playing like this. And obviously he could go back to the old Darnold we know next year. He could have an off year. They'd be like, oh, fine, that's Darnold's key to go. But if he plays as well and he keeps going, I don't think they'll ever want to drop him. I don't think you can. If he's playing as well for 3-4 years, I think then you look at probably you do trade away JJ McCarthy at that point because for the sake of his career, because you can't just keep banking on, oh, one day Darnold's going to regress. So I think it's a really, really, I think the way the playoff goes and the way next year goes is I think crucial towards McCarthy's career. And we thought Brett Favre got traded after a year with the Falcons. Maybe we'll see that happen. Of course, Trey Lance. We also obviously Brock Purdy comes in, has an amazing start, and they stick with Brock Purdy. And I think maybe it could be a similar situation for McCarthy.
We also got to remember Darnold. He only signed a 1-year deal in Minnesota. So he can just not want to be there. He can look at the situation and say, hey, JJ's the next guy. I want to go somewhere where I'm going to be the franchise quarterback. And then you're looking at maybe like a Tennessee or a team that is outside of the top picks for a outside the top picks for a quarterback in the draft class. So it's, like I said, it's going to be a very interesting storyline as soon as the Super Bowl is over, basically, about what happens in Minnesota with the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think for me, there's one team that stands out as a perfect landing spot for him. You think about how he's excelled with good coaching, with a good franchise. It's the Rams for me. I mean, Stafford is getting on now. He's still doing well, but I think the signs are there. And I think you think about Stafford, what appeals for Donald the most. If you go from, you don't want to go from a Vikings team where you got a good head coach in O'Connell, you got great receivers, then go to a Titans team or to a Raiders team, who haven't got the weapons around them, haven't got the coaching stuff. I think if you go to the Rams, you've got McVay, you've got Puka Nacua, you've got an excellent defense, Kieran Williams. I think that for me, is the perfect landing spot for Sam Darnold. I think Matt Stafford at some point he's not going to be here forever. He's already, I can't think what age he is now, but he's getting on. He's been going for a long time, drafted 2009. And I think that for me would be, I think personally, for any quarterback who wants to go to a new team, that should be seen as the perfect landing spot for a player.
Yeah. Agreed.
So our final two games, first of all, is a double header on Monday Night Football, which I don't know why they started doing this and started doing these more and more each season. But we've got two. Commanders hosting the Falcons. I've gone for the Commanders winning this game. I think the Falcons, I think Penix had an okay debut, but I don't think it was anything special. Whereas I think the Commanders are, again, they've struggled a bit recently, but they're, for me, a way better team than the Falcons. And I think it's a win for Washington. Dan, who wins it for you?
So I actually watched that Falcons game live last week, and Penix, he actually looked really good. He had a couple. Let's see, he had 3 drops by his receivers that would have accounted for a touchdown, like another 60 yards, plus that interception. I don't know if you've seen the highlight by Kyle Pitts. That interception wasn't on him at all. So I believe Penix had a really good game considering it's his rookie debut. And now we get a rookie on rookie matchup, which is, exciting to see maybe the future of the league. I think Washington handles this one easily. They're hot right now, the red hot team just catching a not red hot team at just the right time. So I think Washington handles business at home.
And finally, we've got a game which I think would have been earmarked to start the season as the game of the season. It's a repeat of the NFC Championship game last season. The Niners take on the Lions. However, it's not the game we thought we were going to get. Niners are officially out of playoff contention. The Lions are rolling as good as ever. They're 13-3. 13-2. I think the Lions get a job done. I think the Niners are just on the beach mode now. They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna play for anything now. They'll obviously still want to win games, but the season's done for them. They're completely hurt in every aspect, and I think the Lions are going to keep rolling. They've lost players, but they seem to be doing well. You lose Montgomery, McNeil, you still absolutely hammer the Bears. So for me, Lions win, keep rolling, and they beat the Niners.
Yeah, I agree. This 49ers team without Trent Williams at left tackle looks like night and day. Detroit Lions handle business with this one.
I agree. But that is the end of our predictions. So in the end, we've gone for 5 different winners. So we've all gone for wins for the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Chargers, Broncos, Rams, Bills, Saints, Colts, Dolphins, Commanders, and Lions. Whereas I went for the Bears. So I went for the Seahawks over the Bears. Dan went for the Bears. Dan went for the Jags over the Titans. I went for the Titans. I went for the Cowboys over the Eagles. Dan went for the Eagles. Dan went for the Vikings over the Packers. I went for the Packers. And finally, I went for the Panthers over the Bucks. And Dan went for the Bucks over the Panthers. But yeah, that is the end of our Week 17 preview / Christmas special. So first of all, Dan, once again, huge thank you for coming on.
Yeah, not a problem. It's always a great time. Congratulations again on your big news. That's really exciting. And Merry Christmas to you, Andy.
You too, mate. You too. Have a great day tomorrow. And for those of you who haven't yet come across Dan's work, and if you haven't, why haven't you yet? Dan, how can they find you on socials?
Easiest way for all my work would be on Twitter at DanT_NFL. That page has links to all my other work, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or such.
Fantastic. So do check them out if you haven't already. But in the meantime, this has been our Week 17 preview with myself, Andy, and your guest today, Dan Toomey. Have a great Christmas. Enjoy the games tomorrow and the rest of Week 17. And we'll see you guys for our Week 17 review. Take care.